you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We were just talking about, not being relatable, but my bio is very much relatable. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to be very relatable. So yeah, if I may introduce myself, I usually say, and my whole bio came from a conversation at like 9 o'clock on a Thursday, a few years ago. A gal I did not know at all messaged me on Facebook and was like, I love your energy. Your picture just vibe. And she's like, and I'm not this woo, but holy crap, you just feel so good. And I was like, it's good to be felt, I'm like, who cares? And it didn't seem like she was like coming on to me or anything. And it wasn't some like creepy guy or anything, that sometimes happens on social media. And so when she was like asking me, well, who are you? I was like, screw it. I'm a farm-raised, college-educated, former local government employee turned business owner who's no longer ashamed of her spiritual gifts.
Perfect summary.
But then as we were just talking about not being relatable, I'm like, that's a very relatable bio.
Very relatable, and especially here because I'm in the Midwest. Yeah, tell us that story, because I think that's one of the connections that we have. I'm in Iowa. You were from Iowa?
Yes, I now live in South Carolina. I spent first 28 years of my life in Eastern Iowa. I grew up and worked. Well, I grew up in like a farming. I mean, what community in Iowa is not farming, but a smaller community in the eastern part of Iowa. And then I worked for the city of Clinton. I worked for the city of Eldridge, just north of the Quad Cities. I went to school in northern Iowa. I graduated from my master's from Drake, so all over that part. Then went on vacation and met my now husband in Florida. So wrapped up my life in Iowa and moved to be with him and lived in Florida for 7-8 years. And then he said to me one afternoon, I think it's time to be a family around family. And there's like 16 family members. I'm like the youngest in my family. So there's like nieces and nephews and their children and sisters and brother-in-laws and everything in the greater Des Moines area. And so I was like, my first response when he said it, I was like, no, I'm not moving back. But I was like, all right, that does sound like a good idea. We were there for a couple of years and it was just too cold. Like, we're just like, so we kind of did the slingshot and went from Florida all the way to Iowa and kind of came back to the central point of South Carolina.
I can't blame you for that move. It's coming out of the winter here, so I can't blame you for that move. In your bio, it's got a great spot. It says she guides fun, fabulous, fashionable females to build their soul-aligned business their way. Sarah believes you have limitless power to live the life your soul came here to live, and she can help you tap into that. Can you elaborate on that? Tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So I have the ability, it was part of no longer being ashamed. It took me quite a bit of years. I had started my business in 2012 as Create the Spark and was helping primarily women, a few good men, create their spark, get back. And I was too embarrassed to actually call that spark soul. But that's really what was going on, that innermost you. People were coming to me who felt very tired, worn out, pulled in many different directions. I had gone through a divorce, so that was part of wrapping up my life in Iowa, moving to Florida. And so that was a lot of people who were also feeling that way. And then Spirit just kept telling me, and I would hide that part of me that I wouldn't like openly channel with people. But then Spirit just said, you need to be all in. And part of that was coming out of the spiritual closet. And then from there, I realized that I could connect with other humans, not just souls as in those who have passed, like as a medium, but, and I don't really know what I'm classified as. I just maybe a channel, but I can connect to another soul, and their soul gives me permission to share with the human why their soul came into their body during this lifetime and what it's here to do. If it's anything, sometimes, and that's what's been cool about this journey. I started it in 2019 is when I realized I could do this, or I was granted this permission. And then from there, some people want to build businesses that are soul aligned. They want to, make money doing what they're here to do. Others, it's just like, I just want to go out and live my life, or there's healing that has to be done or wants to be done. And some don't really have anything to do. They brought children into this world, and that was their point. And that's been cool. That has been very freeing for myself to know everyone has different paths. And it's also interesting because I was little. I was on the swings, age 3, 4-ish, and I would be swinging, having a conversation with divine. Like, it was a two-way conversation I could hear. And I have always wondered, why am I here? Like, what am I doing here? And I realized that's not everybody thinks that way. Some people have never questioned that, but the people who do come to me and want to know their soul's calling have asked, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? So, yeah.
All right, let's get to the gritty here. I'm liking this. Okay, so what's that look like? So you meet me, I say I'm unsure of my divine purpose, or I'm just unsure of my purpose in general. So you see Kirby, are you tapping into like I guess explain the process as best you can for somebody that doesn't understand channeling and what that whole process looks like.
Yeah, my head doesn't spin. I don't become a different person. It's just me. I am able to, so how do I say this? I'm unable. I have spent and been very diligent because in this field of channelers, we'll say, of metaphysics, it could be very easy to manipulate somebody and tell them something or other.
Oh, I'm a huge skeptic. So I just want to be honest with that. And I'm not a huge skeptic towards you, but because you're right, we had the conversation before we hopped on. A lot of the folks that are more open and out there, they don't have the same, it's a different personality sometimes. So yeah. Most of us meet that type of person. So yeah. I have more faith in you. So I'm curious what it looks like from your standpoint. Yeah.
I usually either am on podcast or I do one-on-one conversations to get to know people. I love getting to know new peeps. And it was several people in a row because I didn't understand what we're just talking about, because there's something in me that I cannot lie. Like, I've tried to lie to my parents when I was younger, or like I ran over my dog with the truck and I like instantly wrote my father and mother a note and told them exactly what happened. And like I would like to just slide it off. I can't, like, it's like, so when I was having these conversations with new people, they were like, you're the real deal. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I didn't realize that there were people that wouldn't be. So for me, I have spent several years being very diligent on releasing emotions, thoughts. When I connect to another soul, their own energy, it's a force field of energy. It is their divinity that is within them. I literally am able to see when that energy transcended from non-physical into a body, and I ask that energy, that which we say soul, sometimes even it's just energy. It's just life force energy, because sometimes souls are connected to religion and people have misunderstanding around that even, and that's not my purpose. Other people's purposes is not mine. And so I can see the soul coming in. I'm auditory. So then I begin, yes, I see the soul coming in. I make that connection. I say the name, the whomever is the human in front of me. So I'd say Kirby, 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 and just get into the frequency of your soul. And then I begin having conversations with the soul. What comes out of my mouth is begin to hear, speak, say this, go on, this is what's happening. and there's a different energy. It's not my energy. It's not this omnipresent divine energy. That is definitely different. It's not angelic. It is not spirit guide. It is the individual's energy. And so I just begin asking, why are you here? There's usually some sort of messaging, some sort of alignment that happens. Sometimes people get it right away. What I have noticed is that when people don't get their soul's calling, they're like, that's not really me. All that tells me at first, when I started doing this in 2019, I was like, I'm not doing it right. Oh God, there's something that I'm doing. Now, as I've done hundreds, I've realized, oh, that is the human misalignment. It tells me how many degrees off they are from the energy of their soul. And so then what do we need to do? What do we need to release? How do we align to that? And then once they're aligned, they're like, oh, totally get it. That's what you're talking about X amount of months ago. That makes sense. Oh, yeah, I've been that way my whole life. All right, here we go. So does that make sense, or do I need to be clear?
Yeah, no, it's great. So how do they, so you have the reading, or you have the channel for them, they get this information. How do they align with that, right? So they either believe it or they don't believe it. And then what would be the next step?
If they're like, all right, I need more, there's stuff that I need to work on, they can work with me one-on-one. That's usually, I start them off 4 months. It's just the general amount of time that spirits told me to work with people. Anything that I create, I connect with divine first and say, and I curtail different programs for different people. But if they just want a group, like people like a group energy, my biggest thing is I don't like group think because I don't want the energy to stay stagnant. So I align the program with a higher energy, their soul, their divine. So I'm leading them to where they need to go, not where they're at, which is not necessarily what coaches, marketers we're taught, is like, meet people where they're at. And I'm like, I don't want them to stay stagnant there either. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, whatever. What did you say, hon?
No, I said that's interesting. So yeah, so can you feel that just naturally? So you're having a conversation with me. Is there anything that's popping up?
No. So I know I could, if you want me to tap in, I'm happy to, but I don't naturally, like, I don't walk around being an open book. I used to, when I first got my gift, I would just feel everything and everyone, but now it's intentional. So yeah, if you would like me to give a demonstration, I'm happy to, and see what goes.
Do you, I mean, I'm game. I'm not putting myself on the spot, so there's no pressure. I mean, I can't. I mean, if you want to be put on the spot and try, I'm game, but I also wouldn't do that to you if you didn't want to. Because I know we just popped on a call. Maybe it's tough to kind of get into that space, so I don't want to put you under any pressure or any.
Yeah. All that I ever require is it's for people to say, like, yes, I do. Like, what is it that? Also something that I teach, and it's just people don't know how to ask questions in general. And spirit is very much like, clarity comes in the question. So do you want to know your soul's calling? Is there a question that you have something to that you need clarity on? Is there something that needs to be shifted or understood? Like it helps.
Sure.
Yeah, because like sometimes we just sit here and we're like, we're open to anything. Well, we're connecting to an infinite universe and we're limitless beings. So it's just like, where do we want to start? So
yeah, no, that's such a tricky thing too, because because in my mind right now, I'm like, what do you want to know? I don't know anything off the top of my head that's like super pressing. I mean, maybe because the other thing is too, like you said, so yeah, okay, so we can do that. I'd be curious about my soul's purpose, right? So if my soul does have a purpose, and I like what you said earlier, I don't know if all souls have a purpose, but to experience this reality, maybe not. I don't know that, again, to be a fact. So I think it's perfectly okay for, I say to folks in ceremony all the time, maybe my only purpose is to love this dog that I have and just love it to death. So it's, its time on this planet is beautiful, and that's it. Maybe that's it. Maybe that is the purpose, is just to love the people around us, and something as simple as that. I think we're in a day and an age that where people are looking for more. I can see that being a tricky spot for you, because I meet folks all the time that are called and chosen and these other terms and titles that sometimes I'm like, maybe not, maybe that's you calling yourself, which it always is anyway. But yeah, I'd be curious if I'm following my soul's purpose or if I'm completely in.
I'll do that. And do you have awareness that you have a soul, or is that not part of your consciousness, or how do you refer to it as?
Okay, so I think there's consciousness, which is everything, right? So if you kind of break it down into some different things, so if consciousness is the ocean, all right? So consciousness is the ocean. We're all water in the ocean. I say spirit or spirit energy, whatever it may be, which is consciousness essentially, would be like if I took a cup of water and scooped up the ocean. There's the conscious energy. That is consciousness. That is all of it. You pour that into a physical body, that now becomes an individualized soul. So to me, it still is all one collection of energy, but I think the individualization happens when it steps into the physical form. So I would consider that the soul is the consciousness in this physical form. But again, that's just my, my perspective on it.
Yeah. Do you spend time connecting with soul, or do you feel like your switch in career, or then, because we talked about this, was that like soul leading you?
I feel so, but again, I try not to be, I don't know, you've talked with me enough. I try not to be too wooey and come across like I know this is it and I've got it all figured out. I feel pretty connected to what I would consider my authentic self. Because I could see my egoic self, or the old version of me before I was aware. I could see how it wants to act. There's a clear discrepancy in the way that I see reality. I see it like, this is the way that we used to do it. You can still do that, or here's the real more conscious route. So I think for sure, my level of consciousness has been raised to the point where I feel more in touch with my soul. Yes. But again, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. I feel like there's a phrase that you could connect to, because that's sometimes what soul's calling does, is like, it's almost like a little marketing, like you connect to this. And also soul, for those who are listening, and soul's what I never knew this, but soul's calling is why the soul came into the body during this lifetime. I had a client who kept being like, but I have a purpose. Like, what's my purpose? And I kept being like, it's the damn same thing. Like, what do we do?
Right.
Then I had to step aside my own stubbornness, and I was like, is there a difference? And Spirit's like, yes. And I'm like, okay, what is that? And purpose, as the definition that I've received, is it's the driving force of energy behind the soul's calling that propels the soul forward. And I was like, oh, all right, cool, And I love this because I really don't know anything. And what you're talking about of like not really knowing, that's been a shift for me this year, really. It's just, I don't think I know anything. And not in like I'm dumb, but there's just so much. There's just so much energy, so much. We're in a limitless consciousness of, I don't even know. Like, it's just, I don't have words. And so it's like, I feel like I have nothing to prove. And it's such a good place to be. Like before, when I was starting my business, I felt like, okay, I had to prove that I was spiritual. I had to prove that I had this knowledge. I had to prove that I have the ball. And I'm like, I am. I just, it's what I'm here to do. Take it or leave it. I love working with people who, and I feel like you are this way because the work that you've done on yourself. Maybe if I met you X amount of years ago, it would have been a different conversation. I love getting to work with people who don't have the limiting beliefs. Like they aren't bound to them. They're not bound to a story that they've been telling themselves. It's just, oh, I've been feeling nudged. I feel nudged to connect with you. I knew I needed to connect more with non-physical, and they don't even know what they're talking about. They don't have like this, I've been on a spiritual journey for the last 26 years and I'm studying under blah, blah, blah. That's nice. I love it. Congratulations. Are you willing to let all that go to step into maybe what it is that you need to know? Like, what is you? Is any of this making sense, or like what?
Yeah, I think I just continue to see that as the tricky part of what you do for work, because I work with humans. And even as you're talking about me, I'm like, okay, is it going to be what I want it to be? Right. So like, again, I could feel both portions of the ego and the authentic self thinking, I don't give a rat's ass. And the other part, like, hang on, is it going to prove you? There's so much happening in those spaces that I love having discussions about, because facilitators and people in the spiritual community want to ignore it or pretend it doesn't happen because they think it makes them less spiritual. I love how Ram Dass said, I'm even more neurotic than I ever was. I'm just aware of it. And I think that's really what it's about, is to be able to see these things. And if you've done enough experiences and you think you know something, you haven't done enough experiences. I mean, I thought I knew things for the longest time. In the last couple of medicine ceremonies I have, it's like, it's beyond what you could even comprehend. It's like you're trying to draw stick figures of the complexity of the human body, right? It's beyond you can't even fathom how the eye works, right? It's beyond that, right? It's like an ant trying to understand the scope of the world. So at some stage, I think you're wise to stop. And I think if you're somebody in the spiritual community that's working with other people, I think you'd be doing a disservice to people to push your dogma on them, right? Which I did for years, because I thought this is the nature of reality. This is what I'm doing. So you should probably consider. Now it's like, I don't know. I think I know, but I keep that to myself.
Yeah, for sure. Same. And then I realized, Sarah, you want so many people to accept you for who you are, that you're not willing to accept them for who they are and what they believe. Like, step off, sister.
Tricky one too, though. It's a tricky one too, because maybe this is egoic. I mean, I walk around the matrix all the time, seeing nothing but matrix people. Like, no, I don't think you understand what's going on. And that again sounds egoic, like I do. But I think there's layers to it. Like, I know that water's wet. You may not. Well, I know something that you may not know. So it's a tricky one. So
yeah.
We spend a lot of time listening to those people, and I don't know why. I don't.
Yesterday I had a conversation, and it was like I came out of my body, and this woman was very like this is this, and very conviction. And it's like I came out of my body, and I was like, am I coming out of my body because of trauma? Is this like triggering, or is it an awareness? And it felt very much like an awareness, like, well, what if we looked at it this way? And I didn't go into the conversation. I knew I couldn't even have the conversation, but I was like, what if we look at it this way and then this way? But what about this? So as you were talking, there was like this phrase that kept coming through. So I'm just going to like get quiet for a second. And if this all needs to be like edited, that's totally fine. But people who are listening, I'm just going to get silent for a little bit, and I'm going to connect to Curvy Soul and just share what was like coming through. The expansion of one's consciousness for them to see what is and what isn't. And don't mistake, like for you, don't mistake that that's Sarah, like being like, oh, Sarah just knows. But like, that's like the phrase that just like, that's what you're doing. And it's, I mean, you do it in multiple ways, but it's like, you're just giving people space for them to discover what is and what isn't. And there's no judgment. There's no strict curriculum. There's no you shoulds, you shouldn'ts. And even of itself, that's freeing for people. Because that's what I feel like most of us are always put into boxes of what we should and shouldn't be doing, how to do something. And it can be a switch, it could be a training mechanism in our brain that we're like, oh, we have this freedom to see things differently. It's like as this energy is it's almost like cells within my own cells within my own being were like parts of my own DNA were like being released that were not even necessary anymore. Do you ever experience that? Like, is that what some of your people who, I don't know, does that just, I've never experienced that before.
And what was the phrase one more time?
Okay, well, the phrase, okay, so expanding consciousness for people to see what is and what isn't, for them to see it.
Sure.
But just now when I was like, even like, just because I don't tap into anybody's energy unless they give me permission, but even like connecting with you, it was literally like I was seeing parts of my own DNA that were passed down generations after generations being extracted, like water evaporating and like being pulled out. I was like, you don't need that anymore. Not this anymore, not this. But like at a core level. Is that what people experience when they're around you?
I don't want to put words in other people's mouths. I think that's what the medicine's doing. So I think that would be associated with me indirectly, right? Because the medicine for sure is raising people's level of consciousness. So that's going to be an, indirect reflection, I guess, of what's happening in the space. Yeah.
I almost say, but you also hold, I don't know if I ever explained this to you while we were talking before. I was driving along, is it 235 going through Des Moines and like downtown area, and there's the botanical garden.
Yeah.
And Spirit says it's time to energetically grid your life, your business, your program, whatever. And so people can walk into a space without you always having to be there. You have to be the one facilitating, and you have to be one. They can just walk into any sort of space that you are in, and this is what they experience, just like that. And so I was driving, whatever, 60 miles an hour, 65, and I see the botanical garden, and I imagine, because it was like winter, so it was cold, dry air, and if you walk into the botanical garden, it's like a tropical humid paradise. So completely different than what is on the outside. I think your own energy creates that space for people to feel comfortable, feel safe, feel supported, whatever insert word here, that they can then allow the core mechanisms of what has made them up to be released, but facilitated with the medicine. But it's your own energy that allows that as well. Is that accurate to say? I don't know.
Well, it's again, I don't want to put words in other people's mouths. Whatever reaction they have. I mean, again, the egoic part of us wants to hear that, right? It's like, ooh, we're doing something good. The other part of me is like, it is what it is. It's because I guess my mentality is, it's like I try to view the world as a movie, right? Like it's not real. It's just happening around me. So if I'm in the movie theater and Freddy Krueger hops out of a closet or something, it's like, well, how do I react to that? It's a movie, right? So I put a lot of work into and not completely successful at it, is avoiding that type of things and just trying to keep. So I love the information, absolutely. But I'm sure people that are around me would say that's pretty accurate. But to me, it maybe it feels good, right? It feels good doing the work that I'm doing to hear that. But I don't know. I'd let the individuals decide that. But I think that's a neat process. Yeah, and I'm curious again what it feels like to you. So when you say you see the soul drop in, like how long has my soul been in this body? Since the beginning, right? Or
yeah, your soul has, like, since you were born. So I've only connected to two individuals who their beginning of their lifetime, like the beginning of the soul started this lifetime. So they were new souls. They're hilarious. And this soul is like, here, did you know the grass is green on this planet? Like, oh, did you see the sky? It's blue. Like, and this is how they're talking. And it's just like in this like meditative state. And this soul is absolutely like, it's new. Everything is new. And like, versus old souls are like, let's get the show on the road. We've done this a while. I'm here. Let's do this.
So what do you think a soul would be here for if it doesn't have a purpose?
Lots of different reasons. I am not going to reveal any sort of like details, but I'll just say not about the individual. All right.
Yeah.
So to be respectful on that part. I learned through doing this that some people are here as placeholders. I didn't even know what that meant. And what this individual was here to do was to provide very much a regular job type of thing. I can't even really say it because I don't know who would be listening. And have children, like very much placeholder. That was it. So never felt like, why am I here? I have something to do. I need to be doing. And sometimes people who come to me, they're really good with numbers. So they're supposed to be doing, it's not always work like you and I. We're not always like, not everybody's supposed to be raising the consciousness. Some people up there don't really have a purpose. One person, she was not thrilled to hear this. She came into this body, the soul came into this body to heal lifetimes before. She could not do it in the non-physical. She needed to be in the physical to do it. And I'm like, sorry, sister, but there's work to be done. So you need to connect with people. And I don't connect with you. Like, that's not my gift, is to do the lifetime thing, like journeying and understanding all the lifetimes. I don't have that ability. So I'm like, you need to connect with somebody who does or who gets that. I don't know where to begin, but good luck. So, who else doesn't really, some people even come here. I do not connect with them, but there is something negative going on. And I was like, did this person really come here? And it was yes. Like they came here to do just that. And I was like, dang, and no, I choose not to. Like when I found out that I could connect in any sort of way, I chose, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see shit that makes me scared. Like I don't, I will hear, I will feel, everything. But oh yeah, that's also why people come, is they're like, okay, how do I talk with my soul? How do I listen to this divine guidance? How do I connect? Like, I want to do things that you're doing. I'm like, cool, awesome. And that is what I like, is like, you do it. I never want people to be, listen to me, I'm the guru of the blah, blah, blah. Like, nope. I want you to be your own guru or not, but I don't know. Does that explain?
Yeah, that's great. You had, you are meant for more. It's kind of a baseline for you. Can you explain what that means? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I had, to the short and sweet version of that was I planned my own death. And 1 week before I was going to end my life, a young girl, 16, from DeWitt, Iowa. Ran into her 3 different times. One was in a beauty shop, one was in a tanning salon, and one she was our waitress at a pizza parlor. And that was in 1 week. So it was like a Monday, Wednesday, and a Sunday. And the DeWitt Observer comes out on Wednesdays. I was at my house and I was going to do my thing that I had planned. And I opened up the DeWitt Observer and there was her picture. And I was like, whoa, like, why is this chick coming into my life so much? And I didn't even realize it was all the things that she had accomplished. I was like, oh wow, she must be getting an award. Oh, she's like, blah, blah. she was in the obituary section because on Sunday or Monday, something, she had hung herself. And I started crying, and I was like, I know exactly why this young girl had come into my life. And right then I had not heard the voice. I had heard it years before, hadn't heard this voice, this gift. And I just heard, you're meant for more. And I was like, wow, if something, I don't know what it is, if something believes that I was meant for more, let's stay curious about that. What does that mean? You know, something believes in me more so. And it's not that I necessarily, I don't work with people who are on that verge of suicide because I'm not equipped. There needs more professional guidance and help and love and understanding than I could give. I'm not equipped to do that. But a lot of times people who are coming to me, something has shifted. They're either job lost, spouse lost, divorce, something has shifted in like major in their life, and they're wondering, am I meant for more? Is this all that I'm supposed to be doing? Like clocking in, doing the thing, coming, you know, like, am I meant for more? What am I here for? And so I'm like, well, and what I realized in that time that I was staying curious was I was not listening to my own divine guidance. I would always get these nudges. Yeah, you shouldn't be getting your master's there. Don't sign up for those classes. And when I would, and I would go against it, I was supposed to be in the building on the campus at Northern Illinois University, NIU, at the time of their mass shooting, in the building that it was supposed to happen. It all worked out that the council didn't approve, the city council didn't approve of my classes, didn't approve of my master's, didn't approve of the position that I would be doing all this. So I was like, what is wrong with me? Blah, blah, blah. And it was all working out because I kept hearing, don't do it, it's not right. And then it all lined up to not be that. There's lots of examples like that, but I just kept ignoring it. And I noticed the more that I ignore that inner wisdom, the further and further down I got into a depression. And the more that I listen to it now, little nudges, little conversation, big boom, whatever.
That's good advice for everybody in the sense that, I don't know, I think we're in a world, I think just because of the history of organized religion and how that's kind of spiraled and expanded, that folks are looking for somebody to have the answers. But look, birds were born knowing how to fly. Fish were born to know how to swim. My dog and my cat knows what to eat and what not to eat. They're like, don't eat that, that'll probably kill you. They're pretty aware. Most animals, and we are an animal, sorry folks, are born with the to-do or with a manual, right? God is not something that you need anyone else to introduce you to. Nobody knows God, consciousness, source, whatever you want to call it, more than you do, right?
Yes.
Just a small one that I've been on for a while now. It's like, I think I was reading something, I want to say the Sumerian texts, like the Sumerian texts were written 4,000 years before Jesus showed up. 4,000 years, right? 4,000 years. So was God's master plan, right, to let all those people up to Jesus' time believe whatever the hell they wanted to believe and then wipe them out? It seems silly. So all throughout history, we've had people step in and say that they have the answers. You have the answer. You're just not listening to the answer, or you're ignoring it, or you don't want to hear it. But everyone listening to this podcast, I am 100% positive that you were born with the manual. You're just ignoring it, or you're hoping somebody else will tell you the truth. And that is creating a lot of problems in this world. I mean, that's all social media is anymore to me, is I open it up and I've got 100 people telling me, you know, their little memes, little fortune cookies and how to live and how to exist and how to be in this world, where most of them aren't doing any of that. So to me, to find your own inner guidance is the game plan. So if somebody like you could help them find that inner wisdom and tap into that inner wisdom, they're just better off. And I think that should be the goal of all facilitators and coaches and mentors and guides, that is exactly what it is, a guide to them. It's like the teach a man to fish concept. We've got too
Yes.
many people that are helping people fish and not teaching them to fish because they want them to constantly need to come back for fish, right? I'll keep coming back to me so I keep feeding you. It's the wrong strategy. So
That is not
thank
my
you for
strategy.
saying that. Yeah, it's about people finding their own wisdom. It is where it's at. So I appreciate you saying that.
You're
Um,
welcome.
well, in closing, I guess so folks that have listened to this and say, I'm interested in that, I want to learn more. What else do you offer? Can you give us an overview of, again, just some more services that you offer, how to get hold of you, and what that would look like?
Yes. Various ways to work with me. I would suggest just going onto my website, and it's sarahsparks.love. Sarah with an H, sarahsparks.love. And on there is like ways to work with Sarah, where there's contact or free resources or the home, whatever you need. So on there, I would just go there.
Easy enough. And do you have a message for people? I mean, in closing, what do you want to make sure that people understand maybe about you, or just understand in general that you think would be beneficial?
Mm-hmm. You don't have to do anything that you really don't want to do. I know that we've been told over and over all these things that we are to do. But even your soul's calling, you have free choice to do it or not. So you don't have to do anything that you really don't want to do. You are your own guru. You are your own wisdom. Don't be afraid of yourself.
Good enough. Good enough. Well, I appreciate you coming on and doing a little demonstration. And again, I hope folks reach out to you. We'll put your contact information and your social links in the actual part of the podcast where folks will have access to that. And I hope folks reach out to you. I find this super interesting. I've talked to you a couple of times. I do love your energy, or I wouldn't have had you on the podcast. So hopefully we'll do this again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you so much.